Yossi Melman, he's a security and military expert and the co-author of Spies Against Armageddon, the history of Israeli intelligence. Yossi, welcome to Talk Today. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied reports overnight that Israel was warned ahead of time. And I think the world has sort of watched and thought that, Israeli military surveillance, your intelligence services are second to none. The US has now supported that claim. What do we know to be the truth? Because the world has gone, how did this happen, my friend?
Well, no one knows and no one can give a reasonable explanation to what happened. It was a colossal failure by the Israeli intelligence, Israeli military, and above all, the government. If there was an early warning, and there were reports from Egypt and from the United States that the Egyptian intelligence did warn Israel a week before, or even 2-3 days before, that something big is coming, and Israel did not ignore it or didn't listen to it. But even without it, the failure is on magnitude scale. It's the worst defeat in Israeli history. It's even bigger than the 73 Yom Kippur War, when Egypt and the Syrian armies stormed Israel.
It's interesting. Interesting is probably the wrong word, but much has been made of how politically, domestically, Netanyahu in and out, up and down, problems with, changing the judicial laws. And there have been comments over here in the press and across the world that maybe Hamas, with whoever, probably Iran, have taken advantage of that sort of void, that gap and that uncertainty. But from my point of view, I'd like to speak to you as a security expert about what you think will happen next, Yossi. I understand, and I will make this point, that nobody wants what probably is going to happen. But I will not shy away from saying that Hamas is a terrorist organization that wreaked horrific things over the weekend. And unfortunately, in many instances in the world, and the do-gooders won't like this, when somebody perpetrates what I consider to be genocidal, to be perfectly honest, against the Jewish population, then there have to be recriminations, don't there?
Yes, actually, we in Israel, we don't call him just a terrorist organization. It has been compared to ISIS. Israel is now preparing for a land invasion. So far, in the last 6 days of war, most of the attacks are from the air. The bombardment is heavy. The damage is unbelievable. Nearly 15% of the 2.1 million Palestinians who live in Gaza in very miserable conditions because of Hamas, because of its totalitarian theocracy, now left their houses, and the invasion would inflict further damage on Hamas. The aim of the war aim, as designed by the government, by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and now we have a national unity government, is to destroy Hamas and to destroy its military wing. But it also will cause more toll, more casualties for the Israeli army, no doubt about it. So far, we have 222 soldiers who were identified that they were killed. Probably the number is bigger. On top of that, there are more than 1,000 Israeli civilians who were butchered, massacred. As you said, the scenes, the clips that were coming out of Gaza are horrific. Bodies were mutilated, women were raped, people were beheaded, babies were beheaded. So it's really horrific, and the Israeli response will be fierce, will be strong, will be powerful.
Yossi, we know that there are at least 150 Israeli hostages in Gaza at the moment. What do we know about any efforts to try and retrieve those hostages?
Well, I wrote an article a few days ago suggesting that a humanitarian corridor to release at least women and children has to be open for a couple of hours. Of course, Israel will have to pay a certain price to release some Palestinian female terrorist in exchange. Hamas and the other smaller group, the other terrorist group, is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, said that they are holding 130 hostages. Some of them are soldiers, male and female servicemen. The others are civilians, women, babies, children. I believe that the number is a bit higher. Many of them are, by the way, foreigners with dual nationalities, Americans, French, German, people from Thailand, who were foreign workers in the farms around the area. Hamas said that they will deal differently with the Israelis and will treat the foreigners in a more, shall I put it, humane way. And maybe
Yossi, because I would love to have more time, and I'm so grateful for you, Jonathan. Just one very, very quick question and a brief response. Of course, in any of these situations, and I set my stall out yesterday, I got a Jewish friend who sent me a letter overnight saying her school kids cannot wear their blazers in the high streets of Great Britain for fear of being attacked, and they can't on Friday after school hang out outside the school gates. I know where I stand, but here's what I want you to answer very briefly. Earlier on, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem said, you know, it feels like 70 years ago. It feels like Hamas, this terrorist organization, which doesn't represent the whole of Palestine, let's make that point, wants to eradicate Jews. What would you say briefly to the people who say, well, if you do what you're going to do in Gaza, you're no better and these poor people are going to die? Very briefly, a response for you on that, please, Yossi.
Well, Hamas is a terrorist organization. It wants to destroy Israel. It doesn't recognize Israel. And the war has to be launched against it, forcefully, all out.
Yossi Melman, thank you so much for joining us.